So you know that feeling when a day passes by and you don't really know what you did? Even if you spent time working on something, sometimes it feels like so much time has passed and you just didn't get as far as you would have liked. Or maybe, instead of taking any action, maybe you felt like you were holding yourself back due to, perfectionism. Whether it's slow progress or none at all, the end result is a sense of just not moving forward. It can really mess with you. I've been there myself, and it's actually part of why I decided to look into it further. Even taking on a little art project that I'll be walking through today with you. I don't have all the answers, but hopefully this can inspire you a bit, and of course to know that you're not alone in feeling this way. Before I really get into telling you about my thoughts on the topic, I first wanted to give you a little bit of context. See, I've been listening to a book lately about self-compassion, and it sparked an idea where I could perhaps make some kind of reminder for myself and that I could look at during the start of, each day. Because I'm an artist and an overall visual person, my first thought was to create like a vision board or something. I did have this sense, however, that it wasn't actually for me. At least a typical board that you might imagine, and for it to point more towards daily achievements, daily progress, if you will, that will ultimately steer me in where I want to go. Even on a bad day, what could be the next small step to take? It was actually that sort of reflection that had me onto the next step, asking the questions for how I could make it useful for myself. I'll tell you what I did next for the project, but let's revisit the idea of self-compassion and how it kind of relates to daily progress. To boil it down, it's the process of being kind and understanding towards yourself rather than harshly self-critical or judgmental when issues come up. It sounds simple, though of course it's not always easy. Regardless of how much you actually do in a day, it's unfortunate when this mind that's evolved over all these centuries and eons and forever, right? How it just defaults to the negative. Little or even substantial achievements go unrecognized, and there's always more to do. Sometimes it's good to have high expectations, but not to the point that it leads to paralysis or burnout. So, rather than mentally shooting for perfection, it's better to be flexible with yourself for both the good and bad days that will come. And I know that's a tall order when you got this whole history of a habit, but it's possible. We are all only human after all. After asking and answering some guiding questions that I made for myself, I began to work on the actual project. As I mentioned earlier, I wanted something visual, and in the end, I decided on a sort of poster that would feature my Sona. After getting the basic concept down, I messed around with the layout for where I imagined the text to be, and other ways to make the composition of the piece interesting. One thing I considered was the flow of the text and how a person might read it, as well as how to break up different sections while sticking with the theme. My first attempt at rendering didn't work out for me due to the complexity of it at first, so I actually went back and worked on simplifying it further. This was important because while I still wanted the illustration to look good, I wanted to make sure it didn't compete too much with the actual content. Sometimes simpler is better. After this, the next focus I had was making improvements to the color palette and ensuring there was a good contrast between it all. It all started off mostly dark early on, though I wanted to make sure that it had a calm and optimistic energy to it as well. I even added a little city in the background with a reflective ocean, something to give a better sense of place that made sense for my Sona. After completing the illustration, I used Figma to create the text boxes and add the final text on Procreate again. And there we have it, a little motivational poster of sorts. I honestly feel like just starting out can be the hardest part towards doing anything really, whether it's something related to your goals or with really any task that feels in any way unapproachable to you for whatever reason. One of my favorite things to recall in these moments is from a book called Atomic Habits. It mentions how it's not actually the amount of time you spend towards something that matters, but the frequency in which you actually do it. For me, what this means is that even short sessions can be helpful, especially as you work on getting the ball rolling. You might relate to this, but I find once I finally start on something, hours tend to pass. Even if not, and I end up working on something else, I do feel much better about revisiting the project. It gets easier and easier, and soon enough, it will be complete. It's pretty important to actually acknowledge this and to celebrate that fact, even if you do get to the point where it is natural and automatic. All that work you've put in for however long it's been, it's wonderful. All you have to do at that point is to make sure it feels right still, or if there's any adjustments you can make to make that experience better for you. There were a lot of layout considerations I had, though I'll keep it pretty simple for this. I just really wanted to emphasize daily activities I could do and qualities I can keep in mind each day. Below all that is projects, goals, and reminders. It's not because it's less important, but I imagine there being a sort of order to it all. All these daily efforts will help me get there one day. As I focused more on these long-term goals, I thought to keep reminders nearby as well, as you can kind of get lost in the sauce when it comes to, pursuing anything really. For me, I've been working towards being the best creator I can be, whether that's through streams, art, videos, writing, etc., etc. I like to create things, though sometimes things can get in the way of that. That's pretty much why reminders are pretty essential, because even if you learn something once, these sorts of ideas and thoughts are ones that need to be refreshed and relearned again as new situations arise. Now, I'm not going to say this is the most effective thing to do, but as an artist, I found it to be a really nice project to work on, and it'd be nice to look at whenever I really needed it. And also, you're welcome to take as much inspiration as you'd like for how I made this, if you'd like to make your own little poster that you could even print if you wanted. Before I wrap things up, a quick shout out to all my members on my website. As of recording this, I've been taking a little break from streaming, though everyone in the community, as well as my patrons, have been incredibly supportive. It's been a huge weight off my shoulders thanks to them, and it's given me the flexibility to change things up, like focusing more on videos now. Thank you again. There's one final thing I want you to know. It's that it's okay to take things at your own pace. That whole practice of imagining what a good friend would say to you over certain matters. You can do it for yourself. You can say the things you need to hear and find your own method to remind yourself of those words. Remember, it's a process. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you'd like to see where I go next, please subscribe. Bye.